Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Charlie Rowen here with a new video for you. In this video, we'll dive into the quirk One for All from the My Hero Academia anime. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, just sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So let's get started. Alright, first the basics. One for All is an emitter-type quirk created by combining a stockpiling quirk with a transference quirk. It is one of the oldest surviving quirks, as it has been passed down from one user to the next by consuming the DNA of a previous user. As a result, it has proven to be one of the most important powers in the world of MHA, having the explicit purpose of defeating the villainous All for One. This quirk possesses a lot of raw power and, as a result, requires its user to be in tip-top shape before receiving the ability. If someone got a hold of the quirk without being prepared, their limbs would likely fly off. We know a lot of what the quirk has done in present day of the show, but who were the previous users of the quirk? What powers did they have? The first holder of the quirk, and the one to inadvertently create it within himself, was Yoichi Shigaraki, the younger brother of All for one of the main baddies of MHA. Once thought to be quirkless, Yoichi was a sickly young man whose elder brother gave a weak stockpiling quirk. All for One gave him his power to try and control his younger brother. But Yoichi's mental fortitude proved to be quite strong. He refused to bend the knee. We know little of the second and third users. Aside from that, they were revolutionaries trying to stop All for One at the height of his power. One of them received the power of One for All when they broke into All for One's base of operations, passing it on to their compatriot later on. They used this power to try and stop the tyrant. The moment the quirk was given to the second user was when All for One was truly born. The fourth user of the quirk was Hikage Shinomori. Unlike the others, he knew his limits, understanding that he wouldn't be able to defeat All for One on his own. So Hikage spent the 18 years he was in possession of the quirk in the woods, honing and training the power he was given. This man had excellent reflexes, but they wouldn't prove useful as his body began to age rapidly when he turned 40. Frightened by this development, he searched for a successor, finding the pro-hero laureate worthy and passing his quirk down to him. Daigoro Banjo thus became the fifth user of One for All. He would use the quirk trusted to him in combination with his own to save people. Sadly, this super funky man wouldn't make it very long, as All for One attempted to steal One for All from him. He failed in this endeavor but killed Lariat, but not before he could pass the quirk on. En was the one who received the quirk next. He was given the quirk by Daigoro when the hero was pinned under a pile of rubble, giving the sixth user some of his blood to consume. Yuck. Well, it could have been worse. If you had to pick a way to receive One for All, what type of DNA would you take? Tell us in the comments. En was a man with an indomitable will, which led him to never give in to his enemies. He didn't allow All for One to gain the power he so desired. Eventually, the seventh successor was found, and En's time with the quirk would come to a brutal end. He passed the quirk on to Nana Shimura by giving her his hair to eat. She accepted the power and responsibility she was given, using the quirk to help others. Nana was a hero who always had a smile on her face, no matter how bleak or grim the situation. She believed that smiling showed the remarkable empathy and resilience that heroes were supposed to have. She wasn't a perfect person, and although she believed she did the right thing for her family, she prioritized the life of a hero, which led to many problems later on down the timeline. She would eventually meet her fate, facing off the symbol of evil, but she wouldn't die before finding a successor. Nana chose Toshinori Yagi to succeed her. He was a man with tremendous ambition, wanting to create a society where everyone would feel safe. As a result of this wish, he eventually became the symbol of peace and the #1 hero of Japan, All Might. After the death of his master and graduating from UA High, All Might moved to the US, where he trained for a couple of years, developing his fighting abilities along with many techniques. He was one of the few One for All users to be born without a quirk, yet he proved to be one of the most important. After many years and many regrets, All Might found his successor in Izuku Midoriya, the main protagonist of My Hero Academia. This quirkless boy had used the power inside One for All to become a hero, and I'd say he's been doing a pretty good job. We did get a temporary 10th user at one point, that being Katsuki Bakugo during the events of My Hero Academia Heroes Rising, but the quirk quickly reverted to Izuku Midoriya after the battle ended. That covers all of the users. Now it's time for a little history. The quirk One for All was born over 200 years ago, when All for One, seeking to control his brother, gave him the stockpiling quirk, which combined with Yoichi's to create a combination of those two powers. The quirk One for All itself was only created once an understanding was made between the second user and Yoichi. Yoichi trusted the future onto his saviors, giving them his quirk. The quirk One for All was undoubtedly used to save many lives over the years, but most users came into contact with All for One quite early, so they didn't accomplish much. Once he returned from his training in the US, it was All Might who had the most impact using the quirk. He used his abilities to slowly dismantle the criminal empire that All for One had created. After his entire support system had been almost destroyed, All Might came into a direct confrontation with the villain, fighting against him and defeating him. All for One sustained a lot of damage in this fight, almost dying, but in return, he wounded All Might severely as well. All Might continued operating for the next couple of years, although the time he could spend doing hero work grew shorter as he went along. While doing his work, he encountered Izuku Midoriya, a boy he'd end up entrusting his power to. This boy would endure countless struggles to hone One for All and to make the quirk his own. All Might would come into contact with All for One again, this time defeating him and sending him to Tartarus, but at the cost of his remaining power. After All Might's retirement, he spent time further training Izuku at UA High. Izuku thought he had gotten a pretty good handle on the power, figuring out how to use mid and long-range attacks. After reaching and passing the point of singularity during a training exercise, Izuku manifested the quirk of one of the previous users. He'd unlock more and more of the quirks the previous users possessed and used to fight Shigaraki and All for One as they tried to create another era of fear in Japan. Alright, on to powers and feats. Powers. The main power of One for All is stockpiling, meaning the quirk has accumulated power over time that allows for quick activation. It enhances the strength of the muscles the user chooses. This works to enhance the speed, power, and resilience of the user. Ever since the first quirk inside One for All manifested during the joint training arc, readers and viewers have been waiting to see what other quirks reside in One for All. Over the last 2 years, we've slowly learned this, although we are still waiting to see the final quirk appear, that being the second users. So we'll be going over the ones we know in order of the user. Fajin was the quirk possessed by the third user of One for All. This quirk allows the user to store up kinetic energy by repeating movements regularly. The user can then release the energy, giving them an explosive burst of speed and power, allowing the user to create a pseudo 100% state. The user can choose how much of the stored up energy they want to use for each task, allowing for multiple bursts. Danger Sense was the quirk added into One for All by Hermit Hikage Shinomori. This is the first of the 2 Spider-Man quirks that Deku has. It acts as a sort of spidey sense, warning the user about any potential threats in the surrounding area. This is described as a sharp stabbing sensation in the head whenever it is activated. An unfortunate spidey sense. Black Whip was the first quirk that Izuku manifested. It previously belonged to Daigoro Banjo and allowed its user to produce and command black tendrils from any part of their body. The previous user describes the quirk as a top-grade quirk. However, it appears to be reliant on emotions. It becomes stronger with anger, but can also go out of control if the user doesn't have complete control of their emotions. This power is useful for capturing enemies and increasing one's mobility by swinging around. In conjunction with the Danger Sense, it turns Izuku Midoriya into the Spider-Man of MHA. Then there's Smokescreen, a quirk that allows the user to hide his body in a thick cloud of smoke. It was used by N to obscure the vision of his opponents and catch them by surprise. However, this quirk can backfire on the user, as if too much smoke is generated, the user itself can be blindsided and the power can be used against him. It is also a quirk with limited potential. As N stated, no special moves can be made with it, and it cannot stretch as far in the rain. The last quirk we'll be talking about is Float. This one was added into One for All by Nana Shimura and allows the user to levitate and suspend themselves in midair. Aside from the quirks inside One for All, after passing the point of singularity, the user gained the ability to talk to previous users. At first, this was only possible while sleeping or under other particular conditions. Over time, the consciences inside One for All started speaking to one another, gaining the ability to speak with Izuku in the real world, allowing them to give him their guidance and help. On to features. Having been around for so long, the users have achieved quite a lot with it. We know little of what the quirk was capable of in its earlier days, as we only see it used to destroy the biggest threat of all, a boulder. Shinomori did this as he was training the power. In its later days, the users have quite some feats on them. All Might use the power to defeat All for One, not once, but twice. Both victories came at quite a price, reducing his ability to use the power and taking it away completely. But he still won those fights against the most dangerous man in the world. All Might also defeated the first Nomu, the one that attacked the USJ. A monster that could heal any damage done to it and possessed shock absorption. He did this by hitting him so quickly and so often that it outpaced his regeneration, which had previously healed a missing arm in seconds, sending the creature flying into the air. Aside from that, he has defeated many other powerful villains, including a prototype of the initial high-end Hood. He is the #1 hero for a reason, as he stopped countless crimes and defeated many enemies. Izuku used the power to single-handedly defeat Muscular twice, an A-class villain with an in-universe strength rating of A, later heightened to S for their second encounter. He has also used the power to defeat Kaichisaki after he fused himself with his lackeys to become a formidable threat. If this doesn't seem like much to you, he also managed to fight Shigaraki to a standstill. This wasn't just the standard Shigaraki, but a version of him that had been physically enhanced and given a bunch of other quirks, including All for One. He managed to beat the villain that had defeated Endeavor and killed many other heroes, keeping him at bay for quite a while. He had help for this, but still managed to hold his own. Both Izuku and All Might have many other feats to their names, but I'd say these are the most impressive and give us a good idea to make our ranking. Of course, if you want to see more of his feats, you can always check out the source material. Alright, that's enough of that, and now it's time for our patented Celestial ranking system. Yes, you heard me correctly, the Celestial ranking system. We will be using this system going forward to help you understand the power level of various characters better. Sometimes ranking them makes it easier for people to understand. We hope you will continue to enjoy our videos, and that this ranking system will only make them more enjoyable. Now, on to the first rankings. First, we will be going over the utility of this quirk. In other words, answering, how useful is it in most situations? For this category, we would put One for All at a solid 90 out of 100. This power will prove helpful for heroes, but it won't be all that useful in every situation. The fact that people in MHA generally want to become heroes does give it a relatively high ranking. Now on to power. The power level of the uses of One for All has fluctuated over time. We've seen Izuku train this power from when he broke his bones to when he developed shoot style and further. We've also seen many instances of younger All Might using this power, giving us a good idea of how powerful the quirk truly is. If we're talking about a specimen in his prime and with the full power of One for All, his rating would have to be about 17 out of 100. I say 17 out of 100 because although One for All dramatically increases the user's resistance and strength as they go along, it does not mean they are invincible. Now let's zoom over to our next category, speed. As Hawk says, speed is more important than strength. This category will get about a 16 out of 100. Again, this category can fluctuate depending on the user's proficiency with the quirk. An All Might in his prime could defeat over 10 villains in 3 seconds, and make his way around town in the same amount of time. He constantly zoomed around, helping everyone across Japan in minutes. Japan's a big place, and his response was quicker than local heroes, so I think this rating is well-deserved. Our last category is intelligence. Now, One for All is a quirk that we know to enhance the muscles, so it is powerful that it could enhance brain power. This would explain All Might having an S in intelligence in the Ultra Archive and Ultra Analysis. But since that's just a theory, a Celestial's theory, and none of that has been confirmed in intellect, One for All has a power that will get a 0 in this category. That brings our overall rating up to 126. Okay, thank you all for indulging yourselves with this video. I hope you found it enjoyable and informative. Before the video ends, there are still a couple of things I'd like to say. Are you in the mood for some great storytelling? We the Celestials has you covered. Our We the Celestials My Hero Academia and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in making today's video. You can check us out in the description below. Are you interested in perhaps joining our team? If you are, then I'd like to extend you an invitation. The only caveat is that we only accept members that are 16 years or older in our crew. You can sign up for whichever category piques your interest by joining our recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for new members, so come join us. And that's it for today's video. Thanks again for watching, have a great day, and plus ultra.